So I'd like to share something I've learned through these meditations into fear that I've been going through these last few years, last 10 years really, where I experience a fear within me, and instead of trying to escape from it by doing something outside, trying to change a circumstance outside myself, I actually go into the fear inside myself in the mornings, early in the mornings, before the sun comes up. And I sit there and I observe whatever comes to me. And it's been an incredibly profound experience that has really taught me about myself. So, it's a process of self-realization in a knowing, which is not physical. It's not a physical understanding. It's beyond the physical. It's a spiritual understanding, and it's really the truth about who we are as beings rather than bodies. And we are beings inhabiting bodies. Not that we're in the body, but we are permeating the body and using the body as an experience. And this is as much as it can be very frightening, because the body is an experience of separation from everything around us, everything in the universe we are separated from because of the nature of the body. In reality, we are beings that is connected to everything, and this is ultimately you might say it's our salvation, is that when we do leave the body, or when we are become aware of ourselves beyond the confines of the body, we reach a state of consciousness which shows that we are eternal and safe and protected and loved and given everything that we need, and we don't have to work for it or do anything. It is given to us because that is the nature of who we are within a loving creation, created by a loving creator, and that we share a mind with our creator, and so our mind can create out of love. But if we denied who we are, or we've forgotten who we are, then we are much more likely to create out of fear, and therefore we miscreate. And so what has been revealing itself to me over the last few years is the lesson in authority. If we look at all the problems in our lives, they can all be answered within ourselves by recognizing that the authority is within us, and that all the authority that we have given away or projected outside ourselves, and we look to others to have authority over us, is part of our miscreation. That we are in control of our own being, and we are in control of our experiences of the world. And so learning that we are the authors of our own story, and the world is our story at the moment. This world and the physicalness of this body is our story, and we are the authors of that. Now, when we give authority outside ourselves to others, not only is it used because it is not true and it's an illusion, and for anyone to believe they have authority over another is also an illusion and it's not true. You could say it's part of an insane idea. It's an insane thought, and what is hell but a place of insanity? So when we think that we are not authors of our own creation, and that the author is outside of ourselves, we are literally not seeing who we are, and therefore because we are created in a loving mind which creates heaven. We therefore, when we don't see that and know that about ourselves, we are literally miscreating and creating a hell for ourselves. So all the authority that is outside of us is part of a miscreation, and that's why it's always leading us into darkness and into more problems and into hell, basically, because for anyone to have authority over us, they must be insane. And for us to give authority outside of ourselves to something outside of ourselves must also be insane. We must also be insane to give authority away to somebody else or something else outside of ourselves. If we are created in the likeness and the love of a loving being, calling God or whatever, or her God, if we don't see that, and that authority is within us, if we're not seeing that, we're projecting it outside in fear, because we ultimately believe we've been abandoned inside ourselves, and we are in a state of abandonment, and abandonment is to see ourselves in lack of love, lack of abundance, lack of power, lack of authority. And therefore any authority that's outside is always going to create a hellish experience for ourselves, because we are the authors of our own story, and the ultimate author that we are one with is the author of creation. And if we think like that author, if we think like God thinks, well, we are then creating as God creates, and God creates out of love, and therefore God creates. Look at nature; it's beautiful. There are no problems in nature. When you look at nature, it's all harmonious. Everything flows together. Everything is beautiful. Everything is working with each other. When we don't see ourselves as that, we are literally in defense, and we are in fear of our outside environment. And if you think of the body is always in defense of everything outside of itself. The skin is a barrier against the outside. The immune system is always in defense against the outside. So the body is always, to believe you are the body is to believe that you're always under attack, because everything outside of ourselves is ultimately going to kill us, or is ultimately going to destroy the body. Now, if we believe we're the body, then the outside is fearful. But if we see that we are not the body, that we are actually spiritual beings, and we're actually beings of light, then the world takes on a completely different meaning to us and becomes a place of heaven for us. It becomes a place of absolute paradise. It becomes beautiful, and it works for us. It doesn't work against us. The only reason we fear the outside is because we believe that we're not part of it. We don't see our connections. We don't see our connections to what it is or what each other is. And therefore, to give authority outside of ourselves is to not see the authority, the true authority in another, which is not the egoic mind which has become confused about itself, but it is the God self within the other. And so to connect with that authority with inside ourself and inside another is to join to our Creator, the Creator of the universe, and to join the mind of the Creator. And that is the true author. That is the only true author. We are created. We're not self-created. And so that is where authority is with, and that's where truth lies. And whatever reality there is, that the truth of it lies with that. It doesn't lie outside of that. And all the time we see ourselves as outside of that, we are seeing ourselves in another reality, and therefore we have lost ourselves, and we've lost the authority within ourselves to know ourselves, So we see ourselves as weak when we have lost the inner authority, we've lost sight of the inner authority. And so because of that, we project outside ourselves all our fears. And therefore, whenever anything or anybody believes they have authority over us, know that you're dealing with the devil. You're dealing with evil there. You're dealing with something that's insane, because nothing has authority over who we truly are. We are the authors, and we are the authority of our own beings. And when we realize that that authority is the divinity of the Godhood that's inside us and inside everything that has life, when we realize that, we join into a oneness, a wholeness together. And it is that authority that becomes the author of a heavenly realm for us. To not see that is to see ourselves in a hellish realm. And this is what we're doing at the moment in this world. We're creating a hellish realm for ourselves because we're giving authority outside of ourselves. We're giving authority to others. And you can see this quite clearly. You only got to look at those who are in positions of authority or power, as the world sees power. If you look at them, they don't make sense. They're aggressive, they're violent, they're always attacking, they're always defending. You've only got to look at the past, the history. It's been run by mad rulers and mad kings and queens and mad dictators who've always sought power over others, always sought to gain themselves, always at someone else's expense. And it's always the masses that suffer, whilst those in authority or all the minions that they, the aristocracy or whatever, all their supporters, they gain what they think is power, but it's always at someone else's expense. Because they've lost sight of who they are, they seek outside themselves for power. And if we've lost sight of who we are, we give our power away to them. And we ask them to take care of us, or we believe whatever they say, whatever they tell us. We basically are self-deceived. We are willing ourselves to be deceived by a deceptive belief that's not true. Now, this is all part of a forgetfulness that we are experiencing in the world, because the body experience is a forgetful experience. We've forgotten who we are when we are in the body. We don't have the awareness of the life force that is permeating the body and permeates every living thing. And by not seeing that, we are literally, because we are created in the light of love, by not seeing that, we're literally creating or miscreating in darkness. And this is what authorities on a egoic level, this is what authority does. It creates in darkness, it creates in secrecy. If you look at the authorities, they are deceptive, they are, things are done in secrecy, things aren't shared evenly, nothing is fair. The meaning of justice is completely unjust. The forces that they use to uphold their idea of fairness is violent. The police force, the armies, the military, taxes, all these things are insane beliefs, of how gaining power over somebody else using violence. You've only got to look at taxes. If you don't pay your tax, you will be attacked. Violence will be used against you. You will be attacked, you will be judged, you will be made guilty, you will be imprisoned, and you will be fined. All of these are forms of torture. This is not justice. This is an insanity which only seems to be just because we are seeing ourselves in hell. Only in hell could that be seen as normal. Only in hell could that be seen as good. In heaven, that is insanity. The heaven, if you think of heaven, there is no attack, there is no hatred, there are no prisons. The justice means fairness in heaven, which is the meaning of justice. It means fairness. So all these authorities that we give outside of ourselves is because we've lost the meaning of the true authority, of where true authority belongs, which is within us. Now, if we come to see who we are beyond the physicalness, then we will recognize that there is a living, loving God inside us, and that has created us, and that we are part of that. And that when we use our minds as God would use its mind, his or her mind, then we are literally creating heaven for ourselves, and we become self-blessed, and we bless each other. At the moment, we're cursing each other. we're attacking each other, we're defending each other, we're wearing masks to protect ourselves from each other, under this insane idea that there's this we're all going to be hurt by each other. But we're actually hurting ourselves. And we're allowing authorities to dictate this to us and use rules and laws to uphold these insane beliefs, which are just not true. Truth doesn't require violence to uphold it. Truth is true, and therefore it doesn't require anything to uphold it. It's only illusions that require a force to uphold it. It's only illusions that seek for violence to uphold the illusion. Truth, just if something is true, then it doesn't require anything to outside itself to uphold it. Once you see that it's true, that's it. There is nothing else needed. It's only illusions that require constant vigilance and constant protection. The truth doesn't require protection. The truth is eternal. It's going to last forever. An insane person cannot change the truth. And they might suffer their insanity, not realizing what they're doing, but they cannot change the truth. So it doesn't need defending, it doesn't need protecting, because it is ultimately it's created in the mind of the Creator, and reality is created by a loving Creator. And so that must be the truth. And so that is the authority that basically makes everything perfect, in perfection, in harmony. The universe is in a state of harmony. Everything is a oneness together. So everything is in harmony together, and nothing is working against each other. But we as human beings are seeing ourselves separate from that, and we are working against each other, and we're fighting each other, and we're putting barriers up against each other. We're wearing masks against each other. We have borders on our countries that you're not allowed through unless we deem, some authority figure deems that you're worthy, and if you're not worthy, you can't enter into this land. The land was given to us freely. We shouldn't be required to carry documents or get anyone's permission to be on a piece of land anywhere in the world. All this is part of a mad idea created in some mad mind of the distant past, of some rulers that wanted more for themselves at the expense of everyone else. What is tax? But basically a mad ruler wanting more for themselves so they can create bigger armies and control more people and defend more of what they've stolen from everybody. This is all madness, and when we're giving authority away from ourselves and we're giving it to others, we are supporting them. We're supporting them in their madness. The way to undo all of this is to stop believing in them. It's only our belief in them that gives them power. The minute you stop believing in them, they lose power, because then they become who they truly. Then they become powerless. And eventually they will suffer, and they will go through the process of undoing, and the suffering will lead them to an inner knowing of who they are. But we don't want to get to the point of being deep in hell before we start questioning who we are. We want to try and do that before we get to that place of deep suffering. And we want to do that consciously, and this is what's happening in the world at the moment. We are given the opportunity to make a decision consciously, because the suffering that we're going through at the moment is not that great. We're not actually suffering greatly at the moment. Most people are actually okay. And so we have a choice at the moment. Do we become the victims of an authority that's outside of ourselves, and therefore become a victim of the world? Or do we claim the sovereignty that is basically God that's inside us, and let that come through, and let that join us all together as oneness, as a oneness? It's coming together that is going to propel us into a beautiful future. And it has always been the separation from each other and the defense from each other and the different nations and fighting against each other and the wars against each other and the tribes fighting against each other. That's always taken us more deeper into hell. That has never served anybody. There is no peace in war. You know, they're both opposite ends of the spectrum. But it's that when we come together and we start recognizing the sameness in each other and we start appreciating each other, because what the God that's in you is the same as the God that's in me. The life that's in you is exactly the same as the life that's in me. You know, even the bodies are identical. You know, we all have blood, we all have brains, we all got eyes, we all got stomachs, we've all got lungs, we all breathe air. We're all identical. To recognize the sameness is going to empower us so much more than us focusing on differences that actually don't exist and just illusions. You know, and the ego loves differences. The ego loves to make itself feel like it's special, like it's different and it's better, and or it's not as good. You know, either way, whether it's more good or less good, that's always the ego. You know, either it's poor me or I'm better than you. That is always the ego. But the wisdom of God is that you and I are the same. What flows through your veins is the same as what flows through my veins. My mind is the same as your mind. And when we join our minds together, the sum of all the parts is always greater. The whole is always greater than the sum of all the parts. If you take the body, billions and billions of cells, apart they are nothing, they are insignificant and they can do very little. But you bring them all together as a wholeness and all of a sudden there's a being, and we are that being. You know, at the moment we are little cells all fighting each other and defending each other, you know, but actually we are one being, which is the meaning of Christ. We are one being. We are one being of light. You know, you only got to look at the stars in the universe. They all seem like they're different stars, but they're all shining the same light. It's the same light that's coming out of each star, which is the meaning of the Son of God. We are that sun. We are that light. If we're not seeing that within us, it means that we're seeing the darkness. And in that darkness, we are imagining ghosts and illusions about ourselves that just aren't true. So by going inside, going into the fears, don't run away from the fear. Just acknowledge it. This is what's happening for me at the moment. This is what I'm feeling. This is the situation. Don't try and judge it. Don't try and explain it. Don't try and push it away. Don't try and do anything to avoid it. Just acknowledge what it is and learn how to go inside and see who you truly are. Because that is not a fictitious, it's not a wild imagination. That's something that must happen. You know, it's guaranteed to happen, because who you are is who you are, who you were created to be. You know, that is guaranteed. You are, or we are, going to become self-realized. It's just a matter of time. It's not a question of yes or no. It's just a matter of when. So do we choose to stay in hell and become victims, or do we take the authority, claim the authority ourselves, and say, I am the Son of God, and I do not believe in the madness that the world is creating, that other human beings are creating, and I'm also creating it because I'm believing in it. So you come to this understanding that I've been miscreating all this time. All this time I've been thinking insanely about myself, and I've been thinking insanely about others. And that is a great blessing once you've seen it, because it means you can start undoing all the miscreations, all the things we learned that we thought were true turn out to be illusions. And what comes to fill the illusion, where the space that's left vacant by the illusions, is basically the understanding of reality and the understanding of who we are. So claim back the authority. Don't give authority away. Don't expect someone else or something else to have authority over you. Stop believing in it. See the sense in not believing in it. Because once we stop believing in it, it starts to disappear. Because it's only our beliefs that's keeping it real. If we believe the governments or the police or whatever it is has the right of authority over us, then we are going to, that's the world we're going to live in. We're going to live in, as victims of that. But if we stop believing in it, because we actually see the sense or the madness of what that is leading to, which is quite evident in the world at the moment, the world is in a state of calamity and confusion, because we have this mad authority that is doing the best. Everyone believes that they're doing the best they can, and even that mad dictator or that mad king or that mad ruler, they still believe they're doing the best they can, or they're doing the right thing. But remember, if they are insane, then their idea of right is insane, you know, and we are going to suffer that. You know, the insane believe in insane things. Do not give authority to the insane. Start seeing the sense of reclaiming our sovereignty and bring the mind back into a place of clarity, so that actually we can start creating a world around us that is once again in harmony, because we're thinking like God thinks. We're not thinking like the devil thinks. We're not thinking like we would think if we were in hell, which is where we are at the moment. We are experiencing a world that is much closer to hell than it is close to heaven. The world, humanity has become very destructive and very fearful. And this is a time when we're going to start undoing all of this, because it was a miscreation. We've been miscreating. We've been imprisoning each other. We've been hurting each other. We've been judging each other. We have justice systems that aren't just. We have police, and we have armies, and we have all these defenses, and we have borders, national territories. We hate one nation, we love another nation. We hate one tribe, but we love another tribe. You know, we hate people that are different from us, but we love people that look the same. All these things are madness. All this is part of an insane mind that doesn't see the truth, that the love of God is in everybody, and it's that power that is creative. And if you're not seeing that, then you're miscreating, and you are going to experience the effects of your miscreation, which means you are going to be creating hell. Now, nobody wants this. No one is consciously doing this. No one would consciously choose to be in hell. But when you're insane, you're already in hell, and you're already thinking evil thoughts. So you don't know what you're doing. You're just perpetuating your suffering and keeping it going round and round and never ending. You know, the only way to get out of hell, or the only way to find peace in hell, is to realize that you're not in hell. And this is where coming to see who you are brings that light into your mind, that actually you were created by a loving creator in heaven, and you are still there. The body experience might not be seeing that, but who you are as a living being is still where it's created to be. And that is not the physical. You know, we permeate the physical, and the body does what it does because of the mind is telling it what to do. But the mind's not physical. The mind is spiritual, and the body and the spirit and the mind work together. If the mind is working against spirit and working for the physical, then when we are lost, then we have lost ourselves, and we have lost ourselves in hell, because the spirit is in heaven, and it's still in heaven. It's always in heaven. It's never not where it was created to be. But we can deny it, and we can fall asleep, and we can have bad dreams. And at the moment, we've been having bad dreams for many, many thousands of years, and this can go on for many more thousands of years. But do we want to give that to our children, and their children, and their children? Or do we want to end it now so that actually we create a blessing for our children, and we give our children a place of beauty and safety for them to live in, not a curse, not a place of destruction and hopelessness. And this is why so many people are suffering at the moment, because the world has become hopeless. And those figures in authority are part of that hopelessness, because they can only but lead to more hopelessness, because they don't see, and we don't see, that authority lies within us, and that we are the creators of our world, and we're creating the experience that we're having in the world. The mind is creating that all the time. The mind is the instrument of creation, and it's always creating everything. Everything outside us is experienced inside. We are the authors, and we are the authority. Well, God is the authority, but if we are in alignment with God, then we become a channel of that authority, and therefore we speak the truth, and we see the truth. And all the time we don't, we are speaking of illusions, and we're believing in illusions, and we're creating hell. So this is really the ultimate question. What is the, who are we, where are we, and what do we want for ourselves? If we are seeing ourselves in a hellish landscape, then obviously we're not seeing ourselves as God sees us to be, because God created us in love, and God created us in heaven. So who are we seeing ourselves to be but a false authority over us, which is really the meaning of the devil? If we're seeing ourselves in hell, then we are victims of a false authority. And governments and institutions which dominate the justice system, the legal system, the police forces, all those things, they all might think they're doing the right thing and they're doing the best for humanity, but ultimately they are instruments of separation, and they're instruments of fear, and they are a false authority. And this needs to be undone. Doesn't mean they can't be used for the good of everybody. It just means that at the moment they're only being used potentially for the good of just a few, always at the expense of everyone else. So if you're in hell, you are a victim, but if you're in heaven, you are a victor. You've conquered hell. Those in heaven have conquered hell. Do we want to conquer hell, or do we want to be victims of hell?